Hello everybody, Belmont here. We're going to be talking about today is going to be Hydlide. Yes, I know, it is considered one of the worst games on the NES system. But why? Why is it considered such a bad game? Well, there's plenty of videos out there that'll tell you why it is a bad game. And there's plenty of videos that show you what a bad game it is. But today, I want to talk about the history of Hydlide. How it was developed, how many ports it was actually placed on, and the thing that surprised me the most was the amount of sequels and follow-ups that this game had for such a bad game. Let's start things off from the very beginning. It was developed by T&E Soft, and then the NES version was published by FCI. The platforms it was released on was on the PC 6001 and the PC 8801 in Japan on December 13th, 1984. Later, it was released on the MSX in Japan in March of 1985, on the FM7 in Japan in May of 1985, and then released on a 3.5-inch floppy disk on the MX2 in Japan in July 1985. That's also where it also received the European release, was in 1985 on the MX2. Released on the PC 9801 in Japan, November 1985. Finally released on the Famicom and the NES in Japan of March 18th, 1986. Finally getting its North American release in June 1989. That just blows my mind. That it was released on so many different ports. And in Japan, the Famicom version was actually named Hydlide Special. When it was released in North America, the name had returned to simply Hydlide. Altogether, this game sold 2 million copies across all platforms. Wow. Now let's get to the storyline of it. Yes, believe it or not, there is a storyline. The NES version gives you such a bad version of it that you can barely tell. You don't even get the whole gist of the story at all. So here's the storyline of it. In the kingdom of Fairyland, 3 magic jewels were enshrined in the palace to maintain peace in the kingdom. One day, an evil man broke into the palace and stole one of the 3 magic jewels. Without the 3rd jewel, the 2 remaining jewels lost their magic sparkle. That sparkle was the magic spell that sealed off the power of Viralis, the most vicious demon in the kingdom. That spell was broken. So during the turmoil that followed, the last 2 jewels were stolen. Viralis cast a magic spell on Princess Anne, and that's what turned her into 3 fairies. He then proceeded to hide her somewhere in the kingdom, let loose a horde of monsters, and became ruler of that kingdom. Till finally, a young knight named Jim. Yes, Jim the Knight. He stood up and took action to restore peace in the kingdom. He bravely made his way into the wilderness in full armor to fight the monsters. So that's the storyline of Hydlide. One thing I don't get, who is this evil man that broke into the palace and stole one of the 3 magic jewels? Who is this guy? I've never heard him mentioned ever in the Hydlide games. I've never. Who is he? Who is this jerk that decided to steal a jewel? And why steal only one of them? Anyway, that's the story of it. Now let's talk about the development. According to the game's creator, Tokuhiro Nato, the game was inspired by the Tower of Draga and the Black Onyx, His idea behind Hydlide was to mix together action and RPG elements into a new action RPG genre. He noted that he was completely unaware of Western RPGs like Ultima and Wizardry. He claimed that he was completely unaware of them while developing Hydlide. He only became aware of the other two action simulating RPGs known as Dragon Slayer and Courageous Perseus. He was shocked to find out that Hydlide would not be the only action RPG in development. He felt threatened by Courageous Perseus, which looked visually impressive, but severely underestimated Dragon Slayer, which he found visually unimpressive at all. It was initially well received and considered an innovator when it was released in Japan back in 1984. Some of these innovations include being able to switch between attack mode and defense mode, also known as one of the worst game mechanics ever. Quick save and load options, which we all know how horrible that is. And the use of passwords as primary backup and the introduction of health regeneration mechanic. It was also an early open world game. The first role-playing game that awarded exploration into an open world environment. Well, it is an open world, but it's really not that big. Well, it also received a Platinum Award from Toshiba EMI for 1 million sales. And it never quite captured the same attention beyond Japan. The game had an influence on acclaimed RPG series Ys, which, for example, uses a similar health regeneration mechanic. Also, Call of Duty. This open world design also inspired Hideo Kojima, who designed Metal Gear Solid 5 so that it captures the open world feel he felt when he first played Hydlide on PC. Wow. And now let's talk about the music for Hydlide. Hydlide is infamously known to North America NES users in North America as having one of the most repetitive music that bears a strong similarity to John Williams' Indiana Jones theme. This is because it was one of the only two RPG adventure games made for the Famicom computer without a bank-switched memory. The other NX adventure game, Portopia, has no music at all. So without this bank-switched memory, the music has to repeat over and over again, evidently. They just didn't have enough storage for it. One moment, please. Oh, that's just terrible. Sorry, I was thinking about the music for Hydlide. Made me almost throw up a little. That's how terrible that music is. Granted, I like Indiana Jones. I like the music, but in video game format, it is just terrible. It's a 15-second loop. They really couldn't use the bank-switched memory. They really couldn't put that in there. I mean, I've opened up an NES cartridge. There's plenty of room inside of it. I don't know. I might be talking about something that I don't even know about. But yeah, that's the reason, quote-unquote, that the music is so repetitive. I'm sure once the full score would be released, then it may not sound so much like the Indiana Jones theme. Now let's talk about something that is just wow when it comes to this franchise. It is a complete franchise. Hydlide 2, which was released for the NEC PC 8801 in 1985 and then ported to the MSX in Japan. An official English version was released through Dutch MSX games distribution platform WOOMB.net in late 2006. This game, however, I've never played it. But it introduced a morality meter where the player can be aligned with justice, normal, or evil. Killing humans or good monsters lowers the player's morality, while fighting evil monsters increases it. If the player has an evil alignment, the townfolk will ignore the player, denying access to certain clues, dialogues, equipment, and training. That actually sounds pretty interesting. Like a lot of modern day games do that too. Again, Hydlide once again responsible for being an innovator. It also introduced a time option, allowing the player to speed up or slow down the gameplay. Again, that's pretty innovative, especially for 1985. Very nice, okay. That release was never formally released outside of Japan until 1986, so we never got to see it in its infancy. Hydlide 3, The Space Memories, was released in 1987 for the MSX in Japan. This game, for the Japanese version, retains the morality meter of its predecessor and expands on the time option with an in-game clock and a need to sleep and eat. The game uses 4 distinct character classes. This particular version of it was also re-released through the Dutch MSX game distribution platform capital W, capital O, capital M, capital B.net in late 2006 with an English translation. Now let's talk about Super Hydlide, the Sega Genesis version. That one is an updated port of Hydlide 3 it was released in Japan in 1989. On the Sega Genesis, it was released in 1990. That one's not too bad, but again, I just really did not like the need to sleep and eat. I did not like that. It created a lot of meat, or I should say a lot of fat on the meat, that was completely unnecessary. But you can't really blame them for being innovative, for trying new things, if you will. Now, let's talk about virtual Hydlide. This game is so horrible. This one is just awful. It is a 1995 remake of Hydlide. A remake. It was released exclusively for the Sega Saturn. It uses pseudo 3D graphics, a live-action player character, and a system which creates a new game world for each game you randomly selecting from pre-designed level maps. But none of that is necessary. You have a compass that takes you point A to point B. That's all you do. You can play the whole game without fighting anybody in the overworld. This game is making me sick. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I gotta say about Hydlide. From 1984 onwards to 2006, this game has been considered at least somewhat relevant. Very innovative on a lot of genres. But it's still one of the worst games I've ever played. Now, many people might be thinking, well, bad games are becoming good. People want to buy and play the bad games. You don't want to do that with Hydlide. No. No, no, no. Do not. Ugh. I'm going to go play some Super Mario Bros. 3 now. Something to alleviate this. Thank you so much for everybody. See you later. Bye.